Hello everybody, today I have another story to tell you about another bad thing that happened in the 1990s that has to do with video games. But unlike the previous two stories I told on this channel before, this one was 100% my fault. Some of you are not going to like what I'm about to say because I made some questionable decisions and I just need to get it off my chest. I've never told anyone this stuff before. So I believe this takes place in late 1997. I was 22 years old and I had moved into a house with some friends, and one of them was just renting the house and he was renting out the rooms to us. So I was living with my friends, which is always a good idea. I had a Sega Saturn and there was also a PlayStation in the house. In fact, I have a photo of me playing that PlayStation, but I had a Sega Saturn in my room and I was still working in the grocery store business. I've already talked about that in my previous stories and my previous videos. If it seems to you like I was working there a long time, that is 100% true. I ended up working about 10 or 11 years at this same grocery store. And in 1997, I was working full time. So I had more money coming in than I had ever had before. And of course, you know what I was doing with it. I was buying games. I was getting a lot of Sega Saturn games and occasionally I was buying a PS1 game or whatever, but I was living in a very small room in that house and I didn't have that much room in there. And the thing about these cases is that they take up a lot of space. And they also were breaking on me. If you have ever dealt with these cases, you know exactly what I mean. It's a flawed design. There's two plastic hinges that hold the thing together. I think that's what you call them, hinges. But if you open up the bottom, it puts a lot more pressure on the bottom hinge than on the top hinge. So after a while, these things tend to break and they tend to break around the hinges. And you gotta keep in mind, at the time, the Sega Saturn was failing big time and pretty much everyone knew that PlayStation was running the show. So Sega Saturn games at the time were not really considered high value. Not many people wanted to play them. And I don't remember any used video game stores being around at that time. Maybe there were some. I remember there being more rental stores than actual video game stores back then. Anyway, I needed to free up some space. I was tired of dealing with these cases, so I gathered my entire collection of Saturn games and I removed the discs from them and set them aside, and I removed the manuals. So I ended up with a pretty big pile of cases, and I proceeded to stomp on them and break them up, and I threw them all away. That's sin number one today. I have another story I'm gonna tell in a little bit. At the time, like I said, I thought these things were worthless. So what did I do with the actual game discs? I put them in a CD case. And this is the exact same one from back then. And believe it or not, the games that I destroyed the cases for are still in this holder. At some point, I ended up moving back home to live with my mom some more because I was in college and I was running out of money and I couldn't pay the rent to live with my friends anymore. At some point, this case went missing and it didn't turn up until like 5 years ago. It ended up at a relative's house. They didn't steal it or anything. I think I let them borrow it because I had some Dreamcast games and some other things in here at some point. And I know from looking at this case which games I destroyed. So here's the rub. Some of these games are now worth a lot, but they're worth a lot more if you actually have them complete in box, which I had at some point. As I flip through this, you're going to see PS1 games, you're going to see Dreamcast games. At the time, in 1997, I believe this had only Sega Saturn games in it. So I'm just going to point out the Saturn games in here. If you see a Dreamcast game or something, that does not mean I destroyed the Dreamcast case. Okay, so we got Alien Trilogy, Myst, MechWarrior 2, World Series Baseball 2, FIFA 97, Arcade's Greatest Hits, the Atari Collection 1, Galactic Attack, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Night Warriors, Darkstalkers Revenge, Bug, Sonic 3D Blast, Panzer Dragoon 2, Mega Man X4, Sega Rally, Saturn Bomberman, Virtua Fighter 2, Robotica, Blast Chamber, Pebble Beach Golf Links, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and Skeleton Warriors. So in order to figure out how much money I lost by destroying those cases, I took the names of these games and put them in a spreadsheet, and then I made a column that shows the price of the disc only, what it's going for on price charting, and I know everyone likes price charting. And then in another column, I put complete in box. I won't go through every single one of them, but I'll just point out some of the big ones. Mega Man X4 goes for $118 for just the disc, but it goes for $319 if it's complete in box. So that's already like $200 just for that one game. Saturn Bomberman goes for $135 loose and $432 for complete in box. Night Warriors goes for $45 for just the disc and $65 complete in box. Mortal Kombat Trilogy goes for $99 just the disc, but it goes for $177 complete in box. Some of these are dirt cheap, such as Pebble Beach Golf Links. It goes for $10 loose, $17 with case. Some of the other sports games are like that as well. All in all, I calculate I lost 921 bucks. However, it does get a little bit more complicated. If you remember earlier, I said that as I destroyed these, I took the instruction manuals out and laid them aside. I never could figure out what happened to those manuals. I used to think about it over the years, but one day I was doing some cleaning at my old house and I came across them. And here they are. I couldn't believe I found these. They were in the back of a closet, so they're in very good shape. Nothing was creased or anything like that. So if I resell those disc-only games, I at least have the manual. That was a little bit harder to look that up because it's not a common thing to just have a disc and a manual, so it's a little bit hard to track the pricing of that. But another thing that complicates it is that by putting the disc in this holder, I have apparently scratched some of them up. In fact, the Saturn Bomberman, I've tested it recently. I cannot get it to work in my Saturn. I may have inadvertently scratched the disc by shoving it in here and having it in here over so many years. I do have another story to tell you, but my cat is crying at the door, so I gotta let him in. So, one moment. Come on in, baby. Come on. Come up here. Come here. Come here. It's okay. He was crying outside the door. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Give me a headbutt. Yeah. I like your headbutts. Yeah. Yeah. All right. You want to go back there? That's fine. He does this. He likes to hang out on my back shoulders. It hurts a little bit when he's positioning himself, but he likes it when I walk around like this around the house. But he does it when I sit down too. Very furry cat. Okay, I gotta continue on with the video, honey. I don't think I want to keep you up here. It'll be too distracting to the audience. It's okay. It's okay. Don't claw me. There we go. Good boy. I'm just going to set you down on the floor and just go lay down somewhere. All right. So this next story also takes place around the same time period, but I think it took place maybe 1 year before that Saturn story. Once again, I was working in the grocery store, and at the time, video rentals were a big deal. VHS was all the rage, and so was renting games. And the grocery store that I used to work at wanted to get in on some of that, so they created a little video rental aisle in the middle of the store, and I had a job in the store where I was walking around a lot. So I interacted a lot with the people who worked in that area. The video game selection they had was very small. They had some Sega CD games, and they had some PS1 games, and I can't remember what else. I want to say they were all disc-based games or whatever, but there was like 4 or 5 Sega CD games and maybe 10 PlayStation games. I don't know why they chose to get Sega CD games. I mean, that console had pretty much failed, but I don't know. They bought a bunch of games at one time, and they didn't know what they were doing because this grocery store was just getting into the rental business. So anyway, I don't recall anyone ever renting the Sega CD games. They just sat on that shelf forever. So I don't know if you've ever worked in a rental place, but you end up ordering a lot of one movie, and then when the public is done watching that movie or whatever, True Lies or something, you end up with a bunch of extra copies that no one rents anymore. What you end up doing is you mark them down and you put them in a bin for them to sell for 99 cents or something. And that frees up some space on the shelf, and then you would order some newer movies or whatever. But they started talking to me about marking down the Sega CD games as well. And I told them that they were basically worthless, and marking them down was not going to sell them. I just felt at that time I had my mind on the marketplace, and I knew that nobody wanted Sega CD games. I think I was right. Maybe I was wrong or whatever, but I told them it's better just to throw them away. And I helped them throw those Sega CD games away. And once again, just like before, I put them on the floor and I crushed them with my shoe. The disc, the manual, the case, everything. I do not remember every single game it was. I want to say there was a sewer shark in there, but I do remember a role-playing game, and I think it was Lunar, and I destroyed that, and I threw it in the trash. If that is true, then we ended up losing this amount of money. I'll just put the price on the screen. Of course, that's not the price it was going for at the time. Like I said, Sega Saturn, Sega CD games, all that stuff was failing, and there was not much demand for it back then. We didn't really have collectors the way we have today, so I regret doing that. So yeah, those were my gaming sins, and it feels good to share that story with you. Let me know if you guys have ever destroyed a game or thrown a game away or anything like that. By the way, these stories I've been telling you, they are for entertainment. So it's not like I've been thinking about these things all the time. In fact, I had to really scrounge around in my brain to get the details of these stories back into my memory because I had forgotten so many things. And so don't think I'm traumatized by this. There's far worse things that can happen than video game related stuff. And I've had far worse things happen to me than video game related stuff. Judging by your feedback, you guys enjoy these stories. I do have more of them, so I will share more of them as time goes on. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. There's a couple of other videos on the screen you may want to watch as well. Have a great day, everybody.